Hi guys, welcome to another episode of Life I'm Gonna podcast, guys. Hi guys, so I came across a video recently, um, as it pertains to Vinny Jr. The Vinny Jr. saga continues to rumble on. I came across a video on the Different Knock, TDK. Very, very, very good channel. I tune in a lot because they always seem very not only knowledgeable and multifaceted in the sense that they have, you know, like they have people on who, if they're outside of their limits, they have people on who can fill those gray areas. They also do breakdowns. They have the scouted. So it's a one-stop shop as far as Arsenal content is concerned. And a lot of value there. So I tend to tune in a lot. But they actually said something really interesting on their podcast. I believe it was yesterday, where they actually were saying that Vinny actually needs Arsenal more than Arsenal needs Vinny. And I thought at first it was a little bit strange to say, just because Vinny is this, you know, superstar player, um, probably the best, arguably the best player in his position, that left wing position, at least top three in the world. Um, so, when somebody says that, Vinny needs, and he's playing for Real Madrid. So when somebody says that Vinny needs us more than we need him, it's kind of a strange one. You kind of have to kind of start to think, why would somebody make a statement like that? And then it becomes more and more true the more you dig. All right, so let's go through some of the reasons why somebody would say, or reasons why that is true in my opinion as well. All right, so we have the conflict with Jose Mourinho over the alleged racism statement or racist statement that was made by the Benfica player in the Champions League last season. And Mourinho, making it seem like it was a Vinny Jr. issue, as if he was the one that was provoking the player into making a racist statement, as if that is some kind of like validation or reason to make a racist statement. Um, and also saying that everywhere that Vinny goes, it's just this recurring situation where he's embroiled in this issue where people, so when something happens that much, it must be the person type of situation. When really and truly is Europe. Europe has, I mean, and the God notice goes without saying, Europe has a, I mean, I don't even know what the right word to use. They have a long-term, long-standing history of racism and colonization and imperialism. So, you know, instead of saying it's a Vinny issue, and you know, not to remove any blame from Vinny. Like if you antagonize people, then anything can happen. Not to validate racism, but I'm just saying, if you look for trouble, then you'll find it oftentimes. But at the same time, when you're dealing with something, and Jose Mourinho is somebody who often spoke about his his love and affinity for African people, and when he goes to Africa, how he's received. Um, and then so to make a statement like that, I can imagine why he would be upset. I know from Mourinho's point of view, he was protecting his players. I mean, arguably, if the reverse was done, if he was a Real Madrid manager and, something similar happened, then he would protect, well, I would hope so, based on the evidence that he would probably protect the Real Madrid player and make a statement against the Benfica player. So I guess, you don't want to lose the dressing room. I mean, he's a manager. It's kind of hard for him to really navigate that situation. But it just went south really quickly. And then we have the image right deal. Now, the image right deal is, as far as I understand it now, is that especially at Real Madrid, in Spain and a whole, but specifically at Real Madrid, they hold 100% of your image rights. Um, and the only players that has been what do you call it, that has been exempt from this is in the past is Cristiano Ronaldo. I think he was 70-30, 70%, 30%. Kylian Mbappe, which I believe is either 60-40 or 50-50. And so Vinny Jr., a player who has brought so much success. I believe he won three La Liga titles in which he's been decisive, and also two Champions League trophies, which he has been, between him and Tony Kroos, has been the deciding factors in that game. I believe he scored in both Champions League finals. So he's saying if I gave the club that something tangible, then if Mbappe, somebody who is new to the club, somebody who, as far as for the 2 years that he's been there, has won anything, then surely if somebody deserve to get some kind of deal, at least parity, then it would be me. And so there's an unwillingness and a refusal to meet there. I guess Real Madrid is thinking, if we do it for you, then we're going to have to do it for, it sets a precedence. We're going to have to do it for Jude Bellingham. We're going to have to do it for, whichever megastar comes next and next, and it's just a perpetuating cycle. So they're trying to avoid that. I guess the monetary repercussions are great. So they're trying to avoid that whole situation. As if he came to England, then he wouldn't have an issue with that. He would retain 100% of his image rights, and then he could, I think he does work with Nike, and I mean, there's so many things that he is involved with. Um, that it would, I mean, it's just millions and millions of dollars on the table, and I guess it makes sense. You work so hard to get to this point. Why should somebody else own your image rights? You should own it. Um, the thing, okay, so let's go back to the point number one for a second. Let me divulge for a second. So, um, okay, so England is still Europe. However, Arsenal and the English Premier League are more diverse in culture and ethnicity than it is in Spain. Spain, I would say, as far as I can see, is probably 85% Spanish, and the rest a mixing of different people from France, Africa, and other places, but is heavily weighted towards Spaniards, right? In England, especially in English Premier League, and especially at a team like Arsenal, you would have a lot more diversity and a history of diversity, a rich history of African players coming. So you would find that racial abuse is way less prevalent. And if it comes, it doesn't come. Um, if it comes, the prevalence is way less. I mean, when was the last time you heard about somebody getting, racially abused? I've actually heard racial abuse more on the pitch, that in terms of like a player, and even this is infrequent, but if I was to go back, my gosh, and that kind of tells you, if I was to go back to what I can remember, it's probably the John Terry, Anton Ferdinand situation. When he called the guy, whatever he called him. But that is how infrequent it is when you have to really scale it back and look at incidents of racism. And maybe the fans have said something at some point, but nothing that in recent memory that we can really recall, or that the player overheard, and it was it caused a big uproar. So it doesn't happen. And at Arsenal, it definitely doesn't happen. Um, you know, Throughout the fan base, throughout the teams, Africans are well celebrated, and they're also very prevalent. They make up a large proportion, in the men's team anyway, of the teams, or equal proportion to their counterparts. All right. Anyways, guys, so let's go to the third thing. The third thing is an unwillingness to increase the salary. So Vinny Jr. is of the belief, based on the past, based on his contributions to trophies, that he should be on the same salary as at least an Mbappe. He's done something, like I said before, he's done something that's tangible, something, three Liga titles, two Champions League titles, which he played a key part. He should definitely, if Mbappe is on this, then he deserves at least parity. And you can't blame the guy. I mean, at the end of the day, the difference is that Mbappe signed on a free, and so they didn't have to pay a salary, so they were able to give him, um to put more finances to his to his pay package as a consequence. And I guess that's the difference. But Vinny doesn't see it that way. Vinny feel like the club could still dig a little deeper. I mean, to be honest with you, I mean, it might have a point. Real Madrid has a notoriously, um, I don't want to use any kind of like, term that would like give an impression that in trying to incriminate them, but they have a tendency to to tell players or to nudge players into believing that if they want to sign to the greatest club in the world that they want, then that they have to run down their contract because they're not paying for them. And so most of the players, especially the superstars that they've gotten them on a free. You know what I mean? So, they have all this pent up money from not paying any transfers that, they have, you could say they're being stingy, you know, and that they don't value their players as much, especially the top contributing players as much as they should. Um, but players tend to stay because it's Real Madrid, the most successful club in the world, club in the world. Um, so yeah, so that might be the reason. Anyways, and then we go to the final note, and I know there might be other points, guys, but these are just the four most obvious ones. So I decided, let me just do a quick video on this. The increasing competition with Mourinho preferring to play Mbappe on the left wing, and also the impending arrival of Yan Diamande. So guys, so you are the superstar. It's almost like Neymar at Barcelona. I know him and Lionel Messi wasn't playing in the same position at the time, but when you are a superstar of that ilk, then you feel like, or you have a right to feel like, I guess, based on all that you've done for the game or won in the game, that the club should be based around you in terms of the play, how things run. The team should be built around you. Um, and if you have another player who is equal in ilk, probably not as successful, probably equally successful if you count the World Cup, but and all the League One titles that Mbappe has won over Paris Saint-Germain, which is not a very competitive league. So I don't really think, you know, that they're equal. I think that probably Vinny probably, has more trophies than him, meaningful trophies, because it's a lot harder to win in Spain than in France. And that can be argued as well. But that's how I see it anyways. I think there's way more competition, way more bigger clubs, and way more competition in Spain than in League One. But so to go from being the main star, the superstar alongside Jude Bellingham, but him being the real superstar, and the global name, to having to not only be operating on a lesser salary, lesser means, but also to be the position of uh a lesser role. You might be on the bench, you might not play, you know, have a preference of playing somebody else in this position. Um, and then you bring in a backup for that person. So where does that leave me now? There's two people. And I don't know what this coach is thinking, if he's thinking that Mbappe, and then he might like Yan Diomande. He was saying that he wants more stature in the team. Jose Mourinho saying he wants more stature in the team. He wants more pace. Vinny Jr. has pace, but I don't think he might have Mbappe pace. And I don't know if he has Yan Diomande pace. And he definitely don't have Yan Diomande stature. And then Yan Diomande is 19. So, at least from a forward thinking point of view, that he might even be beginning to be phased out, and that is probably why they're unwilling to pay him this extra amount or give him his image rights or whatever the case may be, because they might be phasing him out. If you prefer another player to him in that position, and that you have the backup for that player, then you must be phasing the person out, right? So yeah, so at this point, Mbappe, I mean, Vinny Jr. would definitely needs Arsenal more than Arsenal needs him. He would be the team will be built around him. The team is already built, but he would be the centerpiece of the team. Um, he would be on, be in a really good position to win that Ballon d'Or that he so is so wanting to do. One could say he has already been robbed of one that is probably something that would increase his appetite. Um, to want to win it. Arsenal is the perfect place for that. We came second 3 years in a row, and then we finally won the league last year. We went to the semi-finals of Champions League last year. We went to the finals this year, so the progression is there. Um, so if you want to win that Ballon d'Or, then you really want to come to a place where you're the centerpiece, where all the goals and assists and everything will be coming through you. Um, the team is amazing. Yeah, you will have to do your defensive duties, which some people feel like Vini Jr. doesn't do, but he actually does it. He does not might not be the best at it because that's not something that Real Madrid necessarily coaches, especially under the managers that they've had. Like coaches like Carlo Ancelotti, those they manage players in terms of how happy they are, how content they are with with their situation or reality at the club, trying to get the best out of them from a psychological perspective, as opposed to coaching tactics in terms of like defensive, getting back. He's not a Pep Guardiola, Mikel Arteta type of coach, and so he might look a little awkward or clumsy when he's doing his defensive work, but he does it, and there's a willingness in him. That you don't see him, Carlo Ancelotti on the side telling him, get back or below. He does it naturally, and so that is a good sign because there's a willingness to do that. Because if he comes to Arsenal, he's meant to have to do it. He might have to do it to any great extent, luckily for him, because we have such a great capacity to win balls back through Declan Rice and now Bruno Guimaraes, and then we have Gabriel, Big Gabby. We have William Saliba, Pierre Nkapie, Ben White, Timber. We have all these. We have such an abundance of great defensive players, both in the middle of the park and on the defensive line, and a great defensive keeper as well. That he won't have to do much of it, but he will have to do at least some share. Um, but yeah, I feel like with all things being said, if he wants the money that he feels like he deserves, he get it at Arsenal. If he wants his naming rights, he gets it at Arsenal. If he wants to be in a situation where he doesn't have to be constantly dealing with racial conflict, he has that at Arsenal. And if he wants to be the centerpiece, to go on to win the Ballon d'Or, and also to probably even get a statue, right? I mean, if he does phenomenal, which which he has all the ability in the world to do, to come to Arsenal to achieve Ballon d'Or. I believe he would be the first Arsenal player to win a Ballon d'Or. And then for sure you get a statue. I mean, there's nothing that could be more enticing than that. Everything that you've been asking for is in that package. The opportunity to win the Ballon d'Or, the opportunity to be the starter in your position, the opportunity to not deal with racial conflict, the opportunity to get your image rights, the money that you want, to be in a team that is champions of England, to be in a team that has been going to the semi-finals and the finals of Champions League for at least the last two consecutive seasons, and the season before, I believe it was the quarterfinal. Then you must surely any person of any kind of real sensibility would it's a no-brainer. London, England, a great place to be as well to live. Um, so yeah, I mean, the ball is in his court, obviously. I mean, I don't know how well he's been advised or how he views the team that he's in, but I'll close by saying this, guys. I don't believe that Real Madrid are going to win the Champions League for sure anytime soon, and I don't think they're going to be winning the La Liga. Um, at least these two things for probably the next 3 years. He's 26 now. Next 3 years, that take him to 29. Moving on to 30. So why stay? So there's all these things against, creating a case against staying, and all these things that are greater likelihoods and that have more potency in it for you to come to Arsenal. Then, you know, I just hope to God that he chooses the right thing. I mean, either way, Arsenal are going to go on to win the Premier League next season for sure. Based on where our project is and relative to the other projects, changing managers, players, new players. It takes a while. You know, it takes a while to build something that is championship worthy. But anyway, guys, hit that subscribe button, like, comment, subscribe, and I'll see you on the next one. Peace out.